Hello and welcome back to the coverage of Paprika's Open 9. My name is Piotr and I'm joined here by Piotr Głogowski, also known as Kanister. Say hello.
Hello.
Yes, and we are finishing up round 1 of our Mythic Championship qualifier for Mythic Championship Barcelona. That's going to happen in July. On the stream we saw Jędrzej Schmidt, and he was playing Blue-Red Phoenix, and Tobias, I can't remember the last name. He was playing Gruul with a lot of big stuff like Steel Leaf Champions, Galtas. Hello.
Yeah, pretty old school take on the green aggressive deck with some new cards, new Gruul cards, and Domri, the second Domri, and some other stuff.
Yes, and there is a huge diversity of decks. We have more than 129 players because we're playing 8 rounds. Urli huge, yeah. Yes, that is true. Urli is eating already. There is a huge diversity of decks. We hear that there are multiple aggro combinations running around. Mono white, mono reds, also mono blue. That's a deck that hasn't been on the radar lately.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Mono Blue was a real player in the last standard format. It was quite popular back there, and to the point where 2 copies ended up top 8ing the Mythic Championship in Cleveland back in late February, with Autumn Borchet eventually winning with the deck.
And also top 2ing the Mythic Invitational.
True. But since that was best of one, so the format was not entirely reflective of
the competitive
best of 3 standard format,
yes,
traditional standard format. But with the release of War of the Spark, Mono Blue seemingly disappeared from the face of Earth. It got completely nuked, and nobody is playing that deck ever. And it seems like a very slight overreaction. There are probably very good reasons to play the mono blue deck. Actually, like right now, the format is overrun to an extent. It's overrun with slower strategies like the 4-color Command Dreadhorde decks, which probably would have some trouble against 1/1 flyers equipped with Curious Obsession.
Most definitely.
Of course, there are problems with that, like the 3 mana planeswalkers being pretty hard to beat. Teferi, Time Raveler, and Narset are pretty rough for both Curious Obsession and counter spells and dive downs, so that puts you in a weaker position. Other card people were scared of was Blaststone, but nobody is playing Blaststone nowadays. That fear should be gone.
You cannot afford it in a 4-color mana base. Okay, we are going to see the match between Michał Skrzypkowski and Lucas Milos. We saw Lucas during the last edition of our tournament, and he was running the Mardu Knights deck with the Knight of Malice, Knight of Grace. And I saw on our metagame overview yesterday that there was a Mardu Knights deck in the field, so he might be running it. It might be interesting.
Yeah, we see that he did not necessarily change his ways too much, and his cards line up extremely well. We see a pretty unpopular choice right now. Main deck Tocatli Honor Guard. It's a super strong card that lines up super well against Marek's
noted, yes,
deck, which is Sultai Midrange. Turning off the entire Explore package. So that's a huge problem. Like, he's probably going to seriously consider using Assassin's Trophy on this Tocatli Honor Guard at some point, because it turns his Wild Growth Walkers and Explore package in general kind of moot.
Yes, enjoy your decks with 2/1s for 3 mana. That's rough. So, pretty strong hand from Lucas. There was a History of Benalia. I saw also a Rekindling Phoenix. There are more lands there as well. So that is a pretty strong start.
Seems like Marek is treasuring his Wild Walker enough to not want to block with it when Tokat Leonard guard attacks, playing around shock, presumably.
Mm-hmm. So now he will untap. Let's see what happens. There is another Wild Growth Walker. Doesn't seem particularly great.
Actually, it seems pretty potent at stopping the
Mm-hmm.
aggressive
That
shot
is
from
true.
Lucas if Marek lines up his cards correctly. He's choosing to pay 2 life. That means that this turn he can play under Wild Growth Walker and a Llanowar Elf, and follow up with an Assassin's Trophy on Tokat Leonard to unlock his Wild Growth Walkers and then gain a lot of life and play the Merfolk Branch Walker, get the Explorer trigger, get some things going, then maybe try to hit with a huge Hydroid Crassus.
On Lucas's side, Huey said that the best combo in Standard is History of Benalia into History of Benalia, and it seems like Lucas has taken note.
Yeah, nice story, bro. As they say, because it's history.
It's
so
history, yeah.
You can say nice story when your opponent says the second one. It's kind of funny. It is pretty nice indeed for Lucas, because it is a legitimate problem. Not easily beatable. There's going to be a lot of knights. They are going to be 4-3s. They are not going to be matching up too badly against Wild Growth Walkers just yet, because Marek is only has a Merfolk Branch Walker, not a Jaillight Ranger. Had he had a Jaillight Ranger available, 3/5s would be great at blocking the 4-3 knights, but as is, it's actually not enough to block them profitably, and Lucas is going to get 2 powered attacks. So it's kind of scary.
Yes, the life gain from Wild Growth Walkers will mitigate some of that damage. But still...
Yeah, it will stem the bleeding, but...
So you go to 23, right? Alright, so my turn?
next turn Marek can play Hydroid Crassus with X4. That draws 2 cards, but still, the body is not going to be too great. Since the body is going to just provide them with a 4/4 that does not block 4/3 knights particularly well.
Yep.
So we might see some multi-blocks with Wild Growth Walkers if Marek is willing.
So all of the 4/3s are attacking, so that's just a chump block. Marek drops down to
Marek
15.
treasures his lifestyle enough to chum block a single knight, take 8 points of damage, go to 15.
Are there standings somewhere? We are going to show you standings after rounds once we get them. They are probably going to happen after final rounds, but you can always ask us for standings for a particular person in the chat, and I think we can provide you with them. Just after the round.
Curiously, Lucas chooses to hold up a Bedevil over playing a Rekindling Phoenix, potentially valuing the ability to deal with a single Wild Growth Walker had Marek drawn a Jaillight Ranger, enough to not play the Firebird.
Yeah, well, it comes at
Because holding up Bedevil would allow Lucas to deny Marek 6 extra life points. It's not what Marek does. He draws 2 cards with his Crassus. We have seen a Hostage Taker and a Forest. Hostage Taker is a pretty good draw, able to kill off a Knight token. The Knights are not going to be as threatening anymore, given the fact that History of Benalia is going to be done already. So yeah, Lucas decides whether to use his Bedevil. It's kind of tough because you kind of want to do it now because of mana efficiency.
Devil A1.
Chooses to kill off a Wild Growth Walker, which is a reasonable choice. The Knights attack through 2 of those anyways. Marek is at 17 life, the Knights attack for 16. You can expect at least a single block to happen.
Yeah, you don't want to go down to 1 life, so... Crosses will probably eat up one of those tokens. We will see if Marek is willing to trade.
Is it eating up if you are trading?
Take 12 damage.
Well,
It's of course depends on the nomenclature you are willing to use.
of course.
Exactly.
And Rekindling Phoenix is now ready to deploy.
Yeah, typically a pretty huge problem for those Sultai decks. Marek has become a so-called landlord at this point. You know, drawing all of lands and all that jazz. He has a hostage taker, so he can take Reclining Phoenix hostage.
Removing the problem temporarily. Next turn, probably, if he gets the chance, he will play it.
Yeah, if the like that's kind of rare because the hostage taker gets removed. That's really scary. But we see that Lucas spent his Bedevil earlier and doesn't have a removal spell for this hostage taker. So
Actually,
Marek-
both players getting flooded.
yeah, Marek is free to play the Reclining Phoenix. And you know, if both players are going to get mana flooded, I'm definitely betting on the side of Sultai midrange being able to utilize its classic find finality, hydrate crushes, inevitability chains.
Even more lands off the top of the library. A Tocatli Honor Guard will disable any enter the battlefield shenanigans.
Marek decides to get a little bit aggressive with the Phoenix, which is fairly reasonable since Lucas is not willing to attack anymore. And at this point, it's pretty funny. Both players are getting
Yeah.
ridiculously flooded.
Extremely flooded.
That's probably the fifth, fourth or fifth land for Marek off the top of the library. So,
But his opponent is matching his pace.
and there we see a Hydrate Crash that probably shuts the door. Hydrate Crash is notably a cast trigger, does not get stopped by Tocatli Honor Guard. Lucas is at 4, dying to Reclining Phoenix on the next turn anyways, and Marek is going to be able to play a Crisis for
A million.
X10 if he plays an untapped land.
Which he might have.
Well, he has lands in his hand. He might also decide not to tap his land on Elf and just cast it for X8 and then play tap land.
Hey, it's yours. I just have lands. Oh, take another one. That's amazing.
Alright. So there's the first game that's been decided by a top deck that stopped the flood. Alright.
Well, I mean, that's as I said, like did like the Sultai deck's chance, especially since like Marek had the Reclining Phoenix, so he actually had a clock going on. So also adding to that the fact that he was inherently favored by the way his deck was built, assuming that there are no insane late game bombs hidden in Lucas' deck. Shuffler's algorithm is bugged, Kappa. That's a pretty apt comment. You know, like some bad strings of variants can happen from time to time. Certainly,
Bound to
Every-
happen in a longer tournament.
yeah. So, I mean, certainly if they happen to you exactly as you're playing your game of Magic the Gathering, you feel as the most unlucky person on earth, but you know, other people experience those too.
So Lucas did not make it easy for Marek, but he managed to kind of build his way back into it. It was looking pretty dire, like History of Benalia into History of Benalia is quite good. So what do you think Marek is going to do to try to combat this?
Well, so Marek probably is, you know, Marek has seen that Lucas is willing to main deck Tocatli Honor Guard. Maining Tocatli Honor Guard is kind of a strong statement because it's not a card that stops many of the most played decks in the format. It stops the ones running the Explore package. Still time mid-range is not even the most popular one nowadays. It's more about the command the dread hotness than that, but Marek will probably try to sideboard around that, possibly maybe reducing the amount of explore creatures that he is running, maybe upping the amount of removal spells that can deal with the Honor Guard,
Mm-hmm.
or just looking for some other ways to gain advantage in the game.
12 out of my 20 manas in the first 20 cards of the deck on qualifier. Yeah, I had the same thing, almost the same thing happened to me. Also, I didn't find last 3 points of damage in 12 cards, which was pretty depressing. So it happens to everyone. All right. As you can see, we have 133 players. That is a lot. So all of these people are trying to earn their spot in Mythic Championship Barcelona.
It's,
So
it's barely over the 7/8 round cutoff,
which means that X2 record might make it into the top 8.
probably.
Probably. While the players are shuffling, we will remind you that this tournament wouldn't have been possible without the help from our sponsors. So we are supported by MTG Spot, which is the biggest and best singles shop in Poland, one of the biggest in Europe. They operate on Card Market as well, who is also our sponsor. Thank you guys. Ultimate Guard, great as accessories for card games. And Okie Dokie Dice, their new project, also great quality dice. SPC Gear, Hrum.com, hobbity.eu, Świat Kawy i Herbaty, and psychotog.pl. So thank you all. It wouldn't have been possible without you. And now let's hopefully get a good game of Magic.
I'm interested to see what cyber tools Lucas has available in his deck, whether he's choosing to remain aggressive with his choice of Benalia, which can definitely prove to be a decent strategy, or maybe trying to go big and
Knight of Malice, maybe?
yeah, Knight
Or
of
Knight
Malice
of Grace.
is
Grace.
Knight of Grace. Yeah, Knight of Grace and Knight of Malice are, you know, aggressive cards that could be playing, but you know, both players keep reasonable hands.
There is a Tocatli on turn 2 for Lucas. Is that a Finale of Eternity in Marek's hand?
I believe so.
So that will allow him to take down 3 creatures once he gets to a significant amount of mana.
Lucas playing a turn 2 Adanta Vanguard.
That is a potent threat.
Yes, no easy answer for Marek right now. Also, pretty annoyingly, he drew a Watery Grave. That means that he does not have double green ready for turn 3 J-Light Ranger or Thrashing Brontodon, no matter what happens, which is kind of a bummer. This is why he debated whether he wants to play the Shockland or maybe he wants to go for a Forest to give himself the option to play something on turn 3. Because as of now, there's not many plays, just the Assassin's Trophy. And finally, of Eternity, not too great yet. Can only target Adanta Vanguard, and given its ability, I doubt it's gonna kill it.
And Johnny gonna pump the team.
Yeah, Ajani makes
The clock much faster.
yeah, Ajani speeds the clock of Lucas quite a bunch. Marek is probably going to consider using his Assassin's Trophy or either creature or either Tocatli Honor Guard or Ajani. Given that trophying the Tocatli Honor Guard is easily undone by Ajani -2ing and bringing it back to the battlefield, I see why Marek went for Ajani right here, but it's a little bit precarious.
Yes, that is indeed the legendary prankster Canister who came here to help us with the coverage.
A legendary prankster, a funny jokester, an MPL pro, and something else probably too. Marek is deciding whether to play a Brontodon or Vraska Golgari Queen. I believe that he's not really into playing Jadelight Rangers yet.
So Veraska will take down the Tocatli, probably will also fall to the attack from Adanto Vanguard.
Yes, yes, that is a fairly strong move for Marek as far as stabilizing goes, given that Vraska essentially buys 4 life.
Destroy target creature, gain 4 life.
Yes, consuming that Adanto Vanguard attack. He is under a lot of pressure, and Adanto Vanguard attacking for 4 points of power is not easily stoppable by Brontodon either, so he needs to find a way to deal with that, but he's en route to being able to.
Arguel's Bloodfast, that's a flip card from Ixalan that we don't see very often now. It allows you to pay 1 and a black and 1 life to draw a card. So there is a bit of a card advantage engine going for Lucas.
Indeed. If I were Marek, I would actually be pretty happy to see that card, given that it's not a pressure card. I'm also super happy to reveal lands to my Jadelight Ranger, given that otherwise Marek would be missing one. He's going to be only able to play an extra land and then pass a turn, but as we have seen this turn, Marek drew a Nissa, who shakes the world. Nissa is a decent card, doubling the mana produced by Marek's forests, opening up possibly a lot of moves for Marek regarding maybe casting a huge Hydrate Crosses.
Lucas paying 4 life to keep Adanto Vanguard alive.
Yeah, there's an
after
interesting
they
tension here
blocked it.
because, you know, Lucas has Arguel's Bloodfast. Arguel's Bloodfast requires you to have life points to pay to draw cards. Adanto Vanguard is very good on the offensive because you typically don't care about your life points, but, you know, between those two cards there is a lot of tension because Lucas is spending his life points on Adanto Vanguard, otherwise he would be able to draw cards with them, so interesting to see those two cards being played alongside each other. Tybalt is going to limit Marek's life gaining options. It's not was not too important until he drew that Wild Growth Walker.
That's got a sting, yeah.
Yeah. That combines nicely with the Jadelight range that he has available. Having
So
5 mana, Marek can deploy Nissa. Nissa,
who makes the 3/3s,
yeah, Nissa can shake a world and
or at least a forest.
attack Tybalt, potentially taking it off the board. Well, I will be a little scared of losing my forest here, given that my already limited mana production ability would be impaired even further. But you know, there are some nice things about Nissa too. She gives her lands vigilance. That means that Marek would be able to play post-combat Wild Growth Walker even after pressuring Tybalt. That's what he does. I like the vigilance motion. I also shake my cards
Of course, it's about sending the message.
very gently a few times whenever I have a vigilance creature.
Just saying I attacked with this doesn't cut it. No.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it doesn't. Vigilance and haste.
So the devil would jump, probably deal 1 damage to. Oh, Nissa. Okay. No, to Marek.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Decides to target face instead of that. Now Marek plays a Wild Growth Walker post combat, taking the. Ooh, and you see that Lucas got actually punished for not casting his Bedevil as soon as possible. Had he cast at the beginning of combat, Marek would not be able to follow with this Wild Growth Walker.
Yeah.
given that he's fairly limited on mana. Seems pretty important. Marek is going to fall down to 6. He does not have a clean Tybalt answer yet, but
Lucas main phasing Arguel's Bloodfast activation.
yeah, looking
Drew
for
a-
action.
Yeah, he drew a Benalia, I think.
Nice story, bro. Haha. Activating his Tybalt, putting it at 1 counter, so he needs to play a thing to be able to
Keep it alive.
protect Tybalt. Because again, Tybalt keeps Wild in check. Plays of History of Benalia. Now he has a 2/2 and a 1/1 Devil to able to block. So Tybalt can be properly protected. There are some awkward things about sequencing here for for Marek too. He could just play J-Light Ranger and he could just say, sure, like, you stopped me. I'm not going to be able to gain any life of this J-Light Ranger Wild Walker activation. Instead he just goes for the finale, which seems extremely reasonable, given that it removes 3 creatures that Lucas controls. Well, removes maybe is saying a lot. It's not actually the case, given that Adantavagar can become indestructible, but
It
again,
also comes at a cost of 4 life.
yeah, at this point the life payment is really taxing if you combine it with the Argyll Bloodfast.
Does go to 4.
The devil does 1 damage.
Did he just kill himself?
Going
Or
to 4,
does
going to 4 is a little precarious, given that Marek can
attack you for 4.
try to opt to just attack Lucas. It heavily points towards Lucas having a removal spell, but we'll see if I don't recall seeing one in Lucas' hand.
Yeah. Seems like it's a bluff.
You know, it requires some dedication to attack Lucas here now after he pretty clearly represents a removal spell. Indeed, he's holding a custom. That
Alright,
play
so he did
makes
have
a lot of sense now.
yes.
Curiously, Marek decided to keep Wildgrowth Walker back. I don't think he's going to try to block the Adanta Vanguard with that.
And I go to my upkeep, and I get this trigger. I can't activate it before and then hit me, right?
So there's a judge question.
Yeah, this is just a question whether Lucas is going to be able to activate his Argyll's Bloodfast in the upkeep before it transforms.
Go to my upkeep.
The answer is yes. There is a legal play, so
Okay, so basically you have to untap first. So you have untap with everything.
Yeah.
Also with this. So now you have upkeep. So now you have.
But
your
curiously,
so it goes on the
Marek didn't attack Tybalt with his Wildgrowth Walker. That means that Tybalt sticks on the battlefield and it's going to be hard to attack again next turn. So getting to life gain from this Wildgrowth Walker J-Light Ranger combination is going to be hard to opt in.
And also Benalia will create another 2/2 token.
Yeah, which is going to defend Tybalt. So that means that it's not easily attackable next turn.
This looks rough.
Lucas also at 2 life, pretty close to
However,
just dying to a single attack.
he has this transformed land right now. He can sacrifice his creatures to gain a bit.
True.
And also Sorin giving his creatures lifelink, being able to ping for 1 and also get something back from the graveyard. That's something that he needed.
Sorin can either ping Marek for 1. Essentially what Sorin does, you know, you can play Sorin pre-combat, then you can attack with your Adanta Vanguard, and Marek is actually forced to champ. You still get life from your Adanta Vanguard because Sorin grants its grants it lifelink during your turn. And then post combat. Post combat. Lucas can minus Sorin and return Tokatli Onagar to stop many of Marek's cards from working. So that ends up with Marek in a somewhat precarious position. That's pretty hard to claw back into the game. 5 life facing 2 Planeswalkers, Heshio Benalia that's about to trigger the third chapter, and Tokatli Onagar turning off your lots of your cards. I do like the synergy between Sorin and Adanta Vanguard. Makes attacking with it very easy and mitigates the cost of paying life points.
Marek deploys Thrashing Brontodon. It's a good blocker. Could potentially destroy the History of Benalia, but not before it. I mean, he needs it for blocking, so he will not be able to destroy it before the trigger happens.
Yeah, no easy way to get around this Adanta Vanguard. Can trade for the knight and chump the Adanta Vanguard. Trade with Brontodon and block with the Lanor Elf. That puts Lucas at
12?
14.
14.
Given that Fisher Benalia triggered this turn,
Oh,
the
yes,
knight
sure.
is a 4-3.
Sure.
Sorin can plus on Marek again. Looking pretty rough for the Sultai player. You cannot let any of those creatures hit him, because that would end up with Sorin finishing Marek off.
Marek ends up trading a Brontodon for a knight and jumping the Adanta Vanguard with a Llanowar Elf.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens next. Sorin.
Sorin, creatures and Agios Bloodfast looks like a pretty potent draw engine. It's a pretty slow one. Not really comparable as far as getting over the top of things like Command the Dreadhorde, but a pretty strong combination nonetheless.
That's a land of the top for Marek, and that's enough to send him packing.
Yeah.
So Lucas Milos manages to square things up. So the players will now refer to their sideboards for the third game. Well, the deck looked pretty strong. It didn't win quickly, but it slowly and surely gained an advantage.
Yeah, it's a 3-color mid-rangey
Grindy pile.
Yeah, it's very aggressively mid-rangey. Excuse me, it's a mid-rangey, very aggressively slanted deck. The Mardu build.
Yes.
So it's definitely going to be able to go along in such a matchup with Bloodfast slash Sorin combination. Draws a lot of cards.
Havai is eating a banana, which is relevant.
I hope it's going to restore levels of potassium to the requisite ones.
Okay.
But you could say that the key turn in this game was turn 3, where Marek was paying the cost for his mana base not being the most insane and not always being able to support turn 3 J-Light Ranger as reliably as one could wish for. given that he drawn both a drawn Catacombs and a Watery Grave, and just a single forest, was not able to cast anything on turn 3. I mean, he casts a Assassin's Trophy, which is not an ideal play. I would definitely rather play a creature, try to double spell with Assassin's Trophy somewhere along the line, somewhere later, damn, sometime later.
So there's a lot of threats in this Mardu deck. So we saw Ajani, we saw Sorin. Both planeswalkers can bring creatures back from the graveyard. Benalia is an engine, a powerhouse by itself. So I'm really interested. I'm interested to see how he fares in the third game, because it's looking pretty solid.
Yeah, a Tokatli Honor Guard is a Tokatli Honor Guard deck is probably feeling pretty good matching up against Sultai.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I'd assume that that's the matchup that you would want to kinda prey on or slash target. Well, given that you're playing mainly copies of cards that are not widely considered to be playable, not widely considered to be main deck playable in the format.
Okay, the players presenting their decks, about ready to begin. So let's draw 7 and see how it goes. Lucas is going to be on the play, so that's going to open up some possibilities of more aggressive starts. There is a Lava Coil in his hand. There is also Bedevil, Rekindling Phoenix,
A Duress.
Duress. That is interesting.
I am somewhat surprised by the Duress, but I have seen players board that in before against Sultai strategies post-board. There's a fair amount of spells available for the Sultai decks post-board, so it's not the most unreasonable, but not the biggest fan of that. Marek goes for a very aggressive Assassin's Trophy on a land, forcing Lucas to find a basic land. People play somewhat low amounts of basic lands pretty often. We have seen that Lucas didn't. We could have seen that Lucas did play Mountain in one of the previous games. Not entirely sure if Marek remembers that, but I do.
Yeah. So
And that's it. Like, interestingly, you know, if your opponent is playing a isolated chapel and passing the turn on turn 1, it could point to many things. One of the potential plays for them, one of the potential hands that they could have kept is maybe a hand that does not have a shock land that would support the check lands. Essentially, by if that is the case, by trophying that, you are giving up some value. But we see that Lucas actually didn't have an extra black source. He just drew one. Decides to go with a turn 2 Tokatli Honor Guard.
and I don't think there is an extra land for Marek, so that will put him in a tight spot.
Yeah, he drew a cast down. Cast down matches up well against this unlocking his J-Light Rangers again.
As long as he draws a mana source.
Indeed. The one upside of Sultai is that you get to run the Explore package, and it's allowing you to get out of situations like this, where you are missing your lands early. Then you get your third land, you play your J-Light Ranger, you get your fourth land, get closer to your fifth land, and then you suddenly cards are flowing and all is well. Yeah, Marek draws a breeding pool, is able to play it, pay to life. J-Light is going to be able to trade for a Night token, maybe even block it if it gets 2 condition to it, although Marek is gonna dig towards land.
Which he finds in the form of a watery grave or a drowned catacomb.
It's a drunk.
Drowned catacomb. All right. Another knight token joining the party.
Notably, I believe that Marek has a Commandy Dreadhorde in his hand, which is an interesting choice against the
No,
deck
the banner doesn't show everything, so
it's an interesting choice against a deck that is going to pressure your life total, which seems like one of the main goals from Lucas. Marek decides not to trade the Jailite Ranger.
he has a Cry of the
saving it
Carnarium, so
for something better.
he has a Cry of the Carnarium that could take down these tokens, but he doesn't have second black source.
Well, I believe he does. He does have the Drowned Catacomb.
Oh yeah, he
In
does
his
have
hand.
one in hand.
The problem is that Jailite Ranger dies to Cry of the Carnarium anyway, so it's a double-edged sword. Lucas goes for an Ajani that's extremely troublesome for Marek right now. He plays a Cry of the Carnarium that kills both knights but leaves the Leonor Guard, and still troublesome. He cannot really play an extra Jailite Ranger. Commandy Dreadhorde is not available for a long time still.
I think that's the finale. No.
I think that's it finally.
Yeah, I don't really know. We'll see.
Maybe I'm confused. Like it's, I guess
No,
it's a
it's
card that
double
makes much more
It's
sense.
double black, so.
Well, finally it's double black, so is Commandy Dreadhorde.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But definitely, finally, is a card that makes much more sense. That
So
will be able to deal with the token.
So History of Benalia pops.
Yeah, not pumping anything. Notably, there's a line of text on Cry of the Carnarium that's really easy to forget about Cry of the Carnarium exiling all the creatures that previously ended up being placed in the graveyard this turn.
So the Jailite should go away.
No, it is Commandy Dreadhorde.
It is, really. You were right, you were right.
Anyway, it's going to get removed from Marek's hand immediately.
Rekindling
Marek,
Phoenix.
yeah, Marek is under a lot of pressure. Ajani tends to make the board states really rough really quickly. Missing land drops not gonna help for Marek. Cannot really do much.
So we got that fixed. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Canister, for spotting that.
Hydroid Cross being a cast trigger, obviously very nice. Versus Takat Leonor Guard, but nice is about the extent of what it is, since it's not necessarily too great in this spot.
Oh yeah, but I think you're weak against so it's there for a reason. Because he's shit against everything else.
Lucas explaining his choice of Tokatli.
Yeah.
Main
We
deck.
have caught a glimpse of his evaluation of the card, which sounded reasonable to me. It is a fairly targeted card, working best against Sultai, Explore package. Yeah, notably, it's very possible that Marek is actually paying a huge price for getting very aggressive with his turn 2 Assassin's Trophy. Had he had it still in his hand while Ajani got dropped, he would be able to maybe use it to deal with that. That would make the prospect of stabilizing much more
History of Benalia the play. Johnny, I imagine, will pump some dorks. Lucas deciding what he wants to target, so he will put a counter on Benalia Knight and on the Rekindling Phoenix, and yep, is going in. Yeah, a lot of decks in Standard are just shocklands, checklands now. So you can sometimes get a Stone Rain for the price of Assassin's Trophy. So that play was okay, but given that we had the knowledge of a basic land,
You know,
it
like
was,
the basic land was played on
the first game. So
the first game, so
also after Assassin's Trophy. So that might have been just a slight misstep.
Correct.
So Marek decided to chump the Tocatli Honor Guard with his Jade Light Ranger. Now he decides whether he wants to deploy a Flying Blocker or a Ground Blocker. Thrashing Brontodon can blank the Tocatli for a turn if it's not pumped by Ajani once more, and can also take down the History of Benalia. But I think that's a little too late at this point. He's facing a lot.
Yeah, there's too much things that Marek would need to deal with. Rekindling Phoenix, Ajani both require very expensive answers, most likely Braska's Contempt, to really get dealt with.
2 removal spells,
Yep.
and that's just the end of the game. So Lucas Milos, with his Mardu mid-rangey pile, picks up a win over Marek Skrzypkowski, piloting Saltai mid-range.
Yeah, Marek never really got time to start deploying his Hydrate Crisis game.
We are going to have a chat with Lucas in just a moment, once he gets out of the booth and joins us. So we are going to see you after a short break and continue with our coverage of MCQ at Paprika's Open 9 live from Szczecin, Poland. So thank you and see you in a couple of minutes.
Take care.